Hello, Hannibal here. Welcome back to another video. And this time around, as you can see, we are doing something, well, everyone is doing in the internet as of today. And that is making a tier list. And I had some questions on what troops could be better or worse, or what I think about the unit troops and or the army list. And I think I want to give you my opinion here if you want to hear it, and I want to start with the Dwarven roster, and because they are the ones I started with and did my first challenge runs. And this is of course my opinion. Yours can differ from this depending on your playstyle. The units probably can change around, but I want to give you here my opinion on what I think are the ones you should take. So B tier would be right around the middle, the average. You can't do anything bad with that. So if you take them, you are okay. A tier units are units you will always take. It's normally an upgrade to some kind of the B tier unit. So if you can get your hands on them, that is great. S tier units are, in my opinion, the units you should always take. C tier units are situational. You can take them, in my opinion, but if you've got a chance to take something else from B or A tier, you of course should. And the C tier is just yeah, let's say the ones you take if you can't take anything else. And D tier is something you should never take, in my opinion. But I think there's only one unit that goes into D tier, and the rest is fine enough. You can take them, but yeah. So let's start with the first units, and the first units are the leaders. So we're talking about the dwarven leaders first, the dwarf foreman, the dwarf captain, and the dwarf engineer. The difference in stats actually is not that great. So the base stats on the ranger and on the foreman is for skill, for power, for defense, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, and 9 discipline for the foreman and 8 for the ranger. And the dwarf engineer loses a bit of power and 1 attack, and gains the discipline and gains a special ability. So he is a bit worse, but in the base stats, and he gets a few extra. Then the difference between those three is the foreman gets the dwarven warriors as a retinue, and the captain and the engineer both get crossbowmen as their retinue, which makes the first one, the foreman, the baseline, in my opinion. You can use him as a melee guy with a line, and if you take him, you are free to take range and machinery in the next one, in the next slots if you start your run, and can build around him. If you take a captain or a dwarf engineer with the crossbows, you definitely need one more melee troop to take. You have to take, otherwise these two can work, but it's gonna be harder. So as the foreman gets a shield wall as a specialty, that's the thing that you can reroll your damage save once in the battle after activation, and you can only activate it once. So it's nice, it can help you out, but I think it's not game breaking, and the ability is fine enough, but it is with a 1 use per battle, depending on how long the battle goes. It decreases in value over time. So in short battles, this one is fine, especially against low units. But in longer battles, if you have got several engagements, one after the other, the shield wall just doesn't cut it, because one-time use per battle is just not it. And as dwarven warriors are his retinue, they are right down the middle. So I say, or I would put the dwarven foreman right in the middle. It's B tier, it's your starting point, it's line infantry, the only one you've got, of course, if you want to guarantee a line infantry. But I would say these guys, the Dwarven Warriors with the Dwarven Foreman, are the middle. So this is the average, and you can't do anything wrong with it, and he's fine. But I think he's a standard. You can think about the other two around him, let's say. Which brings us to the Ranger Captain. The Ranger Captain gets close to the same stats, one less discipline, but gets a two-hand weapon, which gives him more power and a charge bonus. And he gets two special abilities, Hunter's Call and Ambusher. Ambusher gives you the chance to deploy the unit with its retinue in the half of your field, but outside the green box you've got the starting position. So you get more space to play with as the Ranger Captain, which could be interesting and would be a lovely skill. And the Hunter's Call gives you one-time activation per battle, +4 speed. The dwarves have a rather slow roster. So except for the flying machine, everything here is rather slow, and giving that a one-time use and a bit of a boost helps you in positioning, but it's not the be-all end-all. In fact, the Hunter's Call is something I don't really use that often if I would take the Ranger Captain, because either you are positioning and you want the enemy to come to you, and you would only use it if you want to rush the enemy because he's got more range than you, which is not always the case as the dwarves. And overall, the Ranger Captain loses the hand weapon and shield that the foreman has, so he hasn't the staying power, and that's the bad part about it, he gets crossbowmen as his retinue, and crossbowmen just don't cut it with the dwarven roster, in my opinion. You can change him, of course, in with other retinue. If you get it in the buy place or stuff, you can change him out. If you put him into one of the flying machines, he gets really great, but that is situational if you really get him into one of the others. Just from a base standpoint, I'd always take the foreman before the captain, which puts the captain into the C tier. He is situational. If you want to play him, it's fine. You can definitely win games with him, but I don't think that the Hunter's Call and the Ambusher helps you out as much as it should. Especially the Ambusher with the crossbowmen. It sounds interesting and good to put your crossbowman forward and get into shooting range, but at the same time it puts your crossbowmen way out of position. They are in the front, they are the first ones getting attacked by the enemy, especially if he's got cavalry. The crossbowmen have not as much defense and staying power. You will lose. They will get overrun, so you get one more turn out of shooting, but that's it. And running away is just not it with the dwarves, because they're so slow. If you turn and walk, you get a back attack. So you can't really make use of the ambushing ability with his retinue. If he would have some kind of handgunners, for example, or veterans, or some kind of melee troop, I would love this ambusher thing, and he would be great. But otherwise, I don't like him. He is just not it, and the ambushing ability with the crossbows just puts you in a bad position. And that's why I would not take the captain, I would rather take the foreman. Then you've got the Dwarf Engineer. He also gets the crossbowman, but, and there's a big but here, he first of all gets a hand weapon and shield, so he's a bit more sturdy, and he gets the ability Mechanical Expert. Mechanical Expert gives one of your mechanical units the ability to of +2 defense, which is already great. Put on top of whatever the dwarves have. So if you look here, Dwarven bolt throwers have 4 defense, the cannon has 5, the stone thrower has 5, the inferno cannon has 5, and the flying machine has 4. So putting 2 defense on that, especially on a cannon, with a 7 defense is just insane. And what the Mechanical Expert does on top of that is give you a reroll on 1s. So that is something that is very great, and that's something the units here, down here, the mechanical units get as an ability, which means if you've got one mechanical unit and you've got an engineer, you can always forego the level up with the one reroll and do something else with the level up, as the engineer will give you that already. So you get one level up for free here, I would say. And the Dwarf Engineer is, because of that, really great. And the Dwarves are the ones with the machines. The machines of the Dwarves, the war machines, are really strong. And the engineer paired with one of the cannons or other stuff is really strong. So, which is why I like to use him. And in fact, I would put him above the foreman. Yes, he has crossbowman retinue, and I don't like the crossbowman, but at the same time, his ability is so strong. And if you pair him with something else and get him out of his retinue of crossbowmen into some kind of warriors, or even in a flying machine, he just becomes a beast, in my opinion, and which puts him above the foreman. I see an argument that these two are interchangeable, that you would say this one is the foreman is the melee guy, the engineer is the range guy, and one of those. That's fine, I go with that. But in my opinion, the dwarf engineer is the better one of the two, because he has more potential and he pairs perfectly with the mechanical units of the dwarves. And I value the mechanical expertise ability way more than the shield wall ability, because the shield wall is a one-time use once. One use in the battle in one round, and the mechanical expertise is one-time use per battle, but it persists throughout the battle. So you put it down in the first round of the battle, and you've got it for the whole battle, and that pushes him above the foreman, in my opinion. So that's for the main guys, and you can do each one of those. I don't think that any one of those is not viable. The Ranger Captain is still viable, especially if you get him into something else rather than the Crossbowman. But you are doing yourself no favor if you start with him. Which brings us to the melee guys. And if you have a look at the melee guys, we've got the warriors, the veterans, and the deep guard. And stats wise, the warriors are the baseline. They've got 3 skill, 3 power, 4 defense, 1 attack, 1 wound, and 8 discipline. And the Dwarven veterans have 1 more skill on top of that. But they get something else as well, and that is fearlessness. And fearlessness is really good for line holding, as with fearlessness he ignores negatives on discipline rolls. So if you lose with the veterans a round or a turn, you are rolling against the 8 discipline plus whatever your depth of a troop is, and it's rather hard to break the veterans. You have to have bad rolls to really lose the veterans. Normally you run out of troops, in my opinion, before you break the veterans. That's how good they are with the fearlessness. The deep guard get even more power, so 1 more power, 1 more defense, 1 more skill on top of the warriors, so they are better in the attack part, in their power. They've got 1 more discipline from the beginning, and they get armor, so they get another armor on top. But they lose the fearlessness of the veterans. So they are very strong and one of the strongest units, but they, of course, lack the fearlessness. Getting a fearless deep guard would be insane. You would never break those guys. So this brings us, of course, to the categorization of these 3. And I would say, as the foreman with his retinue of dwarven warriors is the baseline, so are the dwarven warriors the baseline. And which means that the veterans are just the A tier. So if you can get a veteran over a warrior, get the veteran. They are just an upgrade, a straight up upgrade over the warriors. The fearlessness just really push it, and the +1 skill is nice. You hit more. Overall, they are just an upgrade. And the deep guard, in my opinion, are the S troop for the dwarves. So if you need a line holding unit that is strong, that can dish out some damage, that can hold against monsters, and is hard to break, except for really bad rolls, I would go for the deep guard. If you can pair the deep guard with defensive rerolls like divinity or the handguns you can get in the special events, these guys are beasts. Which also, to mention that, in the beginning of the game, you could buy handguns for the veterans and the deep guard, and I think also the warriors. But these handguns, putting them onto these guys was insane and pushed them way above everything else. And now you only get the handguns on special events, on the random events. You can get a forge event and get handguns, and you always put them on deep guard or on veterans. I see an argument to put the veteran and the deep guard both into S tier, as they are your line units, your line holders, and the deep guard are, I would say, you could say, the offensive version, and the dwarven veterans are the defensive version with their fearlessness and their one less power. So they won't kill as much, but at the same time they will stay longer than the deep guard. The deep guard have the chance to break, especially if they lose badly against something, but the veterans will stay. At the same time, in my opinion, the veterans are the upgrade to the warriors and the deep guard, which also makes a nice B to S tier, BA and S tier line. Which brings us to the special melee units. So, the special melee units. The dwarves have two of those, the dwarf miners and the dwarf berserkers. The dwarf miners, if you look at the stats, have exactly the same stats as the dwarf warriors, and the only difference is they've got the sturdiness, they've got the ambush thing that the captain has, and they've got great weapons. The ambush thing again gives you the chance to position them inside of your own range, outside of your normal starting position, and the great weapons give you, instead of the defense of the hand weapons and shield, give you one more power, so they hit harder, and give you a charge bonus. This makes the dwarf miners basically, I would say I put them into B tier. You can't do really anything wrong with them. They are the offensive version to the Dwarven Warriors. So if you can decide between the Warriors and the Miners, it's up to you if you want something that hits harder and has a bit more precision in the beginning, or if you want something that is sturdier with a Dwarven Warrior. You can't go wrong with either of those. And in fact, I would say that the Ranger Captain, in my opinion, should actually, instead of having crossbows, should have Dwarven Miners as his retinue, because the ambushing would combine perfectly, and the Dwarven Miners get an upgrade. You can buy them, which is the explosive satchel, the explosive charges, which you can use on a short range before engagement, just like a pilum from the Romans. So you throw your explosives, you soften up the enemy, and then you go into the melee part, which would, in my opinion, mean that the Miners should actually be the retinue of the Ranger Captain in the beginning. I don't know why it isn't that way. I don't know why the Captain has the crossbowmen. I mean, he's a range unit, but at the same time, Dwarf Engineer with crossbowmen is fine. I would rather take the Miners, actually. I would love to see the Captain with the Miners, which would give me, would let me think about putting the Ranger Captain up on B tier. So Miners, Warriors, it's your choice, offensive or defensive. The Dwarven Berserkers. I think you can argue about the Dwarven Berserkers for a very long time. They've got 2 hand weapons and a frenzy and are sturdy, so which means they've got double attack. They get 2 attacks actually, and they have frenzy, which means in the first round of combat they get to reroll their attack rolls, which is insane, because if you hit on 3s, and you have a high chance of hitting all of your attacks. And that is actually very strong. So this is a shock unit for the dwarves. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the berserkers lack the speed to be a really strong unit. You always, or most of the time as a dwarf, you engage from the front, and they miss the sturdiness, in my opinion, that the others have. So you get 1 more power for hitting, you get to 4 defense the others have, but you lose the defense to the warriors. And another thing is, in my experience, they died quite quickly, and you can't recover as many of them as you can from the Dwarven Warriors or Miners. So you lose them quickly, and you lose them, you can't replenish them as quickly, which they are still fine, and they are a good shock unit, which is why I would put them in B tier. They are fine, you can take them, you can use them. They can do a one-on-one, but if they don't win in the first round, their staying power is not as high as the other ones. So you get the chance to, if you get a chance between these three, you can't do anything wrong. You've got the offensive version in the miners, the defensive version in the warriors, and the total offensive version in the berserkers. But remember that the berserkers die rather quickly for a dwarf, that is. But I don't think you can do anything wrong with them. I just don't think they warrant a higher rank than this. Because they are too slow to get into really, really good positions. So if they were like a bit more like cavalry and had a bit more speed to go and to flank enemies, they would go up into A tier in my opinion. But as they are too squishy, die too quickly, and are not it in my opinion. Especially going against undead, for example, the ones you can't break, you are better off going with a defensive option rather than this offensive option. Okay, these are the melee guys, which brings us to the range units. There are 3 of those for the dwarves. There is the crossbowman, which just has crossbow, and the sturdiness each of the dwarves has as well. We've got the dwarven ranger, which is the straight up upgrade to the crossbowman with 1 more skill to hit, and the possibility to scout, which means you can move into terrain without movement penalties, and they've got great weapons, so they get a bit more power on the melee attack and get a charge bonus. And then you've got dwarven handgunners. Yeah, so talking about these guys, there's a clear range for me, or a clear point for me here, and that is that I'm sorry to say the dwarf crossbowmen are just the worst unit the dwarves have in their roster. I would never take them. If I've got a chance in the beginning to take anything, I would take anything else over the crossbowmen. Anything else. The crossbows just don't have the power to push out anything. They've got the same range as the hand cannons, so the range is fine, but the power is just not high enough, so you can't kill anything. Then you're losing the hand weapon and shield possibility. You don't have the hand weapons and shields and any items from the beginning, so you are not as sturdy as you could be, which means in melee you are fine. I say fine enough for fighting, but you won't hold as long. It's okay, but compared to the other ones, I would not take the crossbowman at all. If I can take something else, I would take something else. Especially if you start with an engineer or a captain, you already have a crossbowman. So 1 is way more than enough, and you don't need a second one. Take anything else over the crossbowman, in my opinion. Which brings us to the Dwarven Ranger, and the Dwarven Ranger is a straight upgrade to the crossbowman, which of course means they go before the Dwarven crossbowmen, but they've got one little problem for me, and that is that they've got great weapons, and great weapons are something where you get power on the melee and power in the charge. And I don't know if you want to charge with those guys. They also got the problem all the other dwarfs have as well, which is they are too slow. So if you really want to use them, I would love for them to be a bit quicker. Just like the berserkers, so that you can make use of your scout ability, because going into the woods is fine enough, but as the dwarves are so slow, you can't really make use of the scout ability. I would love for them to be able to run into the woods, run out of the woods on the other side, and try to maneuver with the enemy around the bushes, so to say, and that would be lovely. But otherwise, they have the same problem the crossbows have. They are just not getting it or hitting it. The great weapon is fine to dish out some damage, and especially in the first round, but if you after a charge don't win in the first round, you don't have the staying power. In the same vein, I would say they are C tier, so you can take them, you can play with them. They are not game breaking. They are, if you can use something else in my opinion. Especially if you already got one of the range units, don't use the ranger in my opinion. He's okay, but I would not take him. and but since it's an upgrade to the Dwarven crossbowmen, it's above the crossbowmen for sure. The crossbowmen get their own D tier here. Then we come to the handgunners, and the handgunners are actually insane. They rip apart enemies. Their extra power compared to the crossbowmen just make them so much more worthwhile to take. And you can get them at the beginning right as you can get crossbowmen. So if you ever get the chance to get crossbowmen or get handgunners, in my opinion, you get the handgunners. The base stats are the same, and these handgunners have the same melee prowess or missing melee prowess compared to the other dwarves than the crossbowmen, but they really rip enemies apart. So on the approach, you get probably 2 rounds of fire on the enemy, and the 2 rounds of fire normally decimate them enough that the melee rounds are winnable for you, which gives, in my opinion, the handgunners an A tier. So if you ever get the chance to choose between crossbowmen, rangers, and handgunners, always take the handgunners, in my opinion. They are just superior to the other ones. That is, for me, my opinion, of course, but I don't think that the scouting ability and great weapon ability of the Rangers really cut it, and the crossbowmen just don't have anything useful. This is all, of course, coming from a baseline and from choosing your first units. I know that with upgrades you can push these guys, but you can push everyone with upgrades. So if you say to me that the crossbowmen can be better by being better on the skill and getting maybe another attack, if that's even possible, or they can get ambush or scout, that is fine. That's all fine and good, but that's something you have to buy, and that is also something you have to maybe randomly get. And if you can get it for them, you can also randomly get it for the other ones, which means these are in fact better. So instead of upgrading the crossbowmen, upgrade the handgunners. This is my opinion. So yeah, you can get them better, but yeah, this is from the pure starting standpoint, and thinking about that everyone can get the same upgrades. Yeah, upgraded troops, of course, win every time against non-upgraded troops. That's for sure. Okay, that brings us to the last category for the dwarves, and that is their machines. And the dwarves are insane with their machines. So we got 5 of those. Let's begin with the first 3, and that's the bolt thrower, that's the cannon, 2 range lethal units, so they are strong against single target, or not single target, but multi-wound units. So they are the ones you're gonna use to hit on the weak ones, on the strong units with double wounds. Or multiple wounds, and the stone thrower is your thing for going against the troops. So if you got a mass of troops like a goblin mob or something like that, you can use a stone thrower. So let's begin and see at the bolt thrower and the cannon. The difference between the two in the stats, you can see that the cannon has a bit more power, and the cannon also has its cannon ability. They hit way harder. The range for both is the same. The cannon has 8 power, I think, if I recollect correctly, and the Dwarfen bolt thrower has 5 power or 4. So already the cannon hits harder than the bolt thrower. So if you hit anyone with one of those two, the cannon, if you hit them with the cannon, it's gonna hurt them. If you hit them with the bolt thrower, they have a good chance of surviving. And the difference here is that the bolt thrower, if you get it in the beginning, you get 2 of those, and the Dwarven cannon you only get 1. So you get double the number of troops compared to the cannon. At the same time, the cannon has the distinct advantage that you have a 2d3 roll. So you roll 2d3 and get a minimum of 2 attacks on the enemy, because you're not rolling on hits, you're rolling on guaranteed hits on the enemy. So a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 6 hits. The Dwarven Bolt Thrower, on the other hand, you have to roll for each individual hit. You roll 3d6. It is d6? Yeah. You roll 3 of them, and you have to make a skill check and hit the enemy. So you can hit 0, or you can hit all 3. That's possible, which in my opinion already makes the cannon the better choice, because I rather take the guaranteed 2 hits than the hits where you can't maybe hit at all. And the thing is, the Dwarven Cannon compared to the Bolt Thrower, if you get the mechanical expertise in here, or the upgrade that you can reroll once, you already have a double chance of not hitting only one, but more. And on the Bolt Thrower, you get a second reroll if you're on a 1, but on a 2, you probably still don't hit the enemy. So the mechanical expertise and the upgrade with the reroll ones is also way stronger on the Dwarven Cannon than it is on the Bolt Thrower. You get double the Bolt Thrower, I get it, but the cannon is, in my opinion, still superior. Which brings me to the point that the Bolt Thrower for me is C tier. It is fine, it is in the same vein as the Ranger, it is useful, it can be used, and if you don't get a cannon, get a Bolt Thrower, that's fine, because getting something with lethal shot, in my opinion, is always advisable in each run, because you need something to hit those big multi-wounded enemies. But since the upgrade where the mechanical units can't shoot and move at the same time, you have to position them correctly, and normally you get 2 or maybe 3 shots out of them before they get engaged. And that is why the cannon for me is S tier, as the cannon is just strong. The cannon is way stronger than the Bolt Thrower, and yes, you only get 1, but I'd rather take 1 cannon that hits hard than 2 Bolt Throwers that hit mid or maybe not at all. And in fact, through all my playthroughs, whenever I took the Bolt Throwers, I really couldn't make them work. And yes, you can upgrade them, and they get better with upgrades. But so as well, I can upgrade the Dwarven Cannon, and I'd rather take an upgraded Dwarven Cannon than over a Bolt Thrower. This is, of course, my opinion. I've heard from others that they love their Bolt Throwers, and that Bolt Throwers carried the game for them, which is fine. But in my experience, the Bolt Thrower just didn't cut it. And I would always take the cannon over the Bolt Thrower. If you give me the choice, I will take the cannon over the Bolt Thrower. Which is why I put the Bolt Thrower in C and the cannon in S tier. And which brings me to the next machine. And that is the Stone Thrower. And the Stone Thrower is the non-lethal version. And you take this one. It has guaranteed hits, which is nice, just like the cannon. So you roll, I think, 2d3 again here, and you can upgrade that, of course, and you can hit the enemy. The power is still nice on 6, I think, 6 or 7, so you can use it to soften up the enemy, but the power is not enough to soften up bigger units, like, let's say you're going up against Deep Guard or Veterans, then the Stone Thrower just won't cut it. Killing off some Skaven, some Rats is fine with it, some Undead, all fine. But in the same vein, I say that the Stone Thrower is situational, and that's why I would put him in C above the Bolt Thrower. But I think he's situational because whatever the Stone Thrower is good at, or against whatever it's good against, your main troops will always carry you through that. So if there's Goblin Mob and you're attacking the Goblin Mob with the Stone Thrower, you can also push the Goblin Mob into your melee troops and they will do a fine enough job. Or you can even rip them apart with handgunners. Even crossbow and rangers will do a good job. So for me, the Stone Thrower is situational. If you can get him for free or for cheap and you don't have anything else, take it. Because it's a machine, it's fine, but you can make it work. But in my opinion, the Stone Thrower is inferior to a cannon as well, because your troops will handle whatever the Stone Thrower can handle, your troops can handle, and the cannon will deal with the lethal shot with the multi-wound units. And in the same vein, I would say we go for the Inferno Cannon. And if you want to do something with a stone thrower, I would rather take an Inferno Cannon, because the Inferno Cannon just hits way, way harder and grills the enemy. The one downside to the Inferno Cannon is that its range is just not it. You have to position it correctly, because again, you can't move it and shoot it unless you upgrade it, of course, as the dwarves. But in the standard, you cannot shoot and move, which means you have to position it, and you have to position it correctly, and then you can get, depending on the troops you are attacking and you are up against, you get 1 or 2 rounds of firing out of them. Best case scenario, you have something next to the cannon that holds off any kind of cavalry or monsters, and that gives them the chance to attack on the other melee troops or range troops, and you can grill them quite a lot. And that's why I rather take an Inferno Cannon over a Stone Thrower, because whatever the Stone Thrower does, it has the longer range, but the Inferno Cannon does it better, except a little bit less of range. But I would still take the Inferno Cannon, and that's why I would take the Inferno Cannon on B if you can get it, and if you see it, you can get it for a good price. Take the Inferno Cannon. It's nice. It helps you out, and I would take it over any of the other 2 machines, which puts it into B tier for me. And then we come to the last unit. And the last unit here on the list is the Flying Machine for the Dwarves. The Flying Machine is something special for the Dwarves, because it is a worse Inferno Cannon. So with its jet stream, water steam, whatever it is, you get some kind of flamer device, but it's not as powerful as the Inferno Cannon. At the same time, it's your only flying unit you get, and most importantly, it's the quickest unit you can get. This is your Dwarven cavalry, and you can use this to get behind the enemy, and you would always use this as your last unit. You activate this as your last unit in a run or in a battle, so that the enemy has to react to it, and especially if you are in their backside, they will react to it, and they will get out of position, and then you can use all of your other troops to capitalize on the dispositioning of the enemy troops, and then you just move out of the way of whatever is trying to charge you, and that is that, and it will help you quite a lot. The real downside is here that the flame is not as powerful as the Inferno cannons, and it is not as sturdy. So if you go into melee with this, I would advise you to go from the side, or better yet from the back, but never full frontal unless you have to. But going full front into any kind of thing other than other cannons, I would say, you are losing. Even against something like crossbowmen, if you go in against crossbowmen, your 4 attacks just don't cut it against the whole unit army troop. So go against smaller units like flamers, that's fine, I think. You can go up against the Redkin flamers, for example, any kind of weapons, any kind of limited number troops like the Giziles of the Reds, for example, also fine enough, because rather than getting killed by the Giziles, you just go into melee and kill them off, because you will lose the fight against the lethal weapons with your grill. All of these put together, I would say the helicopter is A tier. You could even make an argument for S tier, as it's your only cavalry unit and you can really cheese the AI with it. And you could use it to really, really dampen the effects of the enemy and disrupt their position, which is fine, as for the dwarves don't have much that is very quick. I still leave it at A tier because you have to use it correctly. It's not as strong as it could be, but I think it would be also. It's just in the right spot, in my opinion, as it would be way too OP if it was like a flying inferno cannon with its power. That would be way too much, and its mobility is what really gives it the advantage here. So this is what the Dwarven roster looks like to me, and what I would take. So to reiterate and quickly, B tier, whatever you get in B tier is fine. You can make it work, and it's the baseline. If you can get one of the upgrades on the A tier, even better yet. And the flying machine, of course, is here to help you out with flanking and cheesing if you so desire to cheese the AI if you need it. And the S tiers are the ones you will always take. So in my opinion, getting a start with the engineer and the crossbowman in them, getting a cannon and the deep guard would be the perfect start. Of course, you normally don't get these. Rather, you get probably the veterans and then one of these two. That would be strong. And you can also take handgunners. But a good start would for me be an engineer with veterans and a cannon. That is a strong start, or veterans and guards is also good, which is just a bit more of a melee slug. If you take the foreman, I would advise to go for handguns in the beginning and then take one of these. You are fine with that as well. And because the foreman already has the dwarven warriors who are not as strong as the veterans, but getting handgunners in there and a cannon, the dwarven foreman will hold the line good enough. And yeah. That is why I would put it like this. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helps you out if you want to do the challenges in the SOVL Souls thingy against the AI. And this is, of course, just my opinion. Yours can differ, and I see some of the arguments for putting things on different spots. But you ask for my opinion, and this is my opinion on the Dwarven roster. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you with the next one. Until then, bye bye.